Good afternoon, everybody. If you're on the West Coast, I guess it's the morning still. It's probably 10 o'clock over there. 1 o'clock Eastern. What's up, guys? Russell says he's not going to be able to... he's going to be listening, but his mic's not working. That's weird. If you've been having issues with mic on both mobile and the computer, that's kind of strange. I mean, have you tried just restarting the device to see if it works? That might help. You try that, restarting the device, or just quit the program and reboot the program. That could help. But it's okay. All right. So today, I'm here to talk a little bit about meal timing. First of all, we're going to review what we did last week, though, right? So last week we talked about getting started. We talked about the basics, right? The most crucial parts of the diet, which is knowing what to eat. Now, it's way more important to know what we eat than when we eat it. Meal timing is of secondary importance to the macros. All right, so we talked about making sure to get enough protein. We talked about sufficient protein. Sufficient protein intake on a ketogenic diet is crucial. Many people, few of us here, have undereaten on protein on a ketogenic diet. 40, 50 grams of protein is not going to be enough for a grown man or a grown woman. Far too little protein. So we talked about getting sufficient protein. We talked about adjusting fat according to your goals. Of course, in the beginning, most of us are going to be eating a little bit more fat. Then, after we get adapted, if the goal is fat loss. For those of us whose goal is not fat loss, we'll be eating significantly more fat throughout the entire duration of a ketogenic diet. If you're trying to gain lean muscle mass, you'll be having more fat. If the goal is fat loss, fat might end up being at about 1 gram of fat per gram of protein. All right, so sufficient protein, about 0.8 grams, even up to like 1 gram per pound of your lean body mass. Now, if you're on a carnivore diet, maybe a little bit more protein. Of course, protein is dished out according to our needs, according to our preferences. Different people might have different preferences, and we all have different needs for protein, right? If you're heavy resistance training, trying to gain lean muscle mass, you're going to want more protein than somebody who's more sedentary. As we age, we become less efficient. We become less efficient at assimilating protein. So as we get older, we might want to increase the protein intake. And we talked about, of course, keeping those carbs low. Right? The carbohydrates are a non-essential part of the diet. Doesn't mean carbs are bad, but we don't need them. And many of us have been having way too many of them for way too long. So we pull out the carbohydrates, we start burning body fat. The body will convert fat into ketones to feed the brain and other tissues in the body. As we get adapted, we get more efficient at using these ketones. So in the beginning, if you're concerning yourself with measuring ketones, which usually I don't really recommend, waste of time, waste of energy for most people. But if you were to measure ketones, you'd find that they go up really high when you're starting out a ketogenic diet, and then they start to drop off. Now, the reason is likely that you're using them more efficiently as you get better adapted. It's a fuel source. The body doesn't want to flood your blood with it. You just need as much as your body is going to use. So we talked about getting sufficient protein. We talked about the insulin-glucagon ratio, right? And how insulin is balanced out by another hormone called glucagon. The glucagon-insulin ratio is very important for metabolic health. Most of us are looking at insulin levels and forgetting there's another half of that picture. Glucagon being a catabolic hormone that liberates and helps you to burn fat. Insulin being more anabolic, storing nutrients, shuttling nutrients into cells. When insulin is high, glucagon is low. On a ketogenic diet, on a low carbohydrate diet, or after fasting, when you eat protein in that low carbohydrate state, glucagon will raise up, allowing you to liberate and burn more fatty acids and create ketones in the liver. While when you're eating carbohydrates and you have protein, insulin will spike up, leaving glucagon lower. And that change in ratio drastically affects how our metabolism functions. So we're all working on getting really good at burning fat. So we want to keep our insulin low, get enough protein to get the glucagon levels up so that we can burn the fat. And we want to create a foundation of habits, of meals that are based around nutrient-dense, whole, unrefined foods that give us enough protein and enough fat to fuel our body and meet our goals. Now, if we're trying to burn body fat, of course, we need less dietary fat. We can burn fat from the plate or from the body. So if you're trying to burn body fat, in the beginning, you're probably going to want more fat than after you get adapted. Once you get adapted, your hunger's going to drop, at which point you don't have to worry about consuming as much fat. You can just burn fat off the body. Fat from the body or fat from the plate. It's determined by our fat intake. All right, you can burn fat from the body or from the plate. If you eat more fat, you're going to burn the fat off your plate. It's as simple as that. So a lot of us, we're not getting enough protein. A lot of us are just starting out keto too. And these are just totally new concepts. I mean, some of us have never tracked macros before. All right, so of course, if you guys have any questions, feel free to private message us or tag us in either the main chat or the Q&A question section, or if it's about recipes or circadian rhythms in those sections. And everybody's at a different place in their journey. There's certain information that'll affect us all. And a lot of us are very interested in meal timing. And that's what we're talking about today. A lot of us have already become interested in a ketogenic diet through getting into intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting is a pretty popular mode of eating that allows us to have relatively low insulin levels and maintain low hunger levels throughout the day. There are benefits and drawbacks to intermittent fasting. We're going to talk about some of those today. And we're going to talk about meal timing and how to adjust meal timing to your context. So first of all, let me say that intermittent fasting is a cool tool, but it's not useful in all situations and isn't the best tool to be using all the time. It's a great way of getting interested in ketogenic diets, right? Because you're getting kind of on the outskirts of ketosis. Your body's burning fat for a good period of the day because you're going to be fasting if you're doing technical intermittent fasting, which by internet terms seems to be a 16-hour fast with an 8-hour eating window, right? So if you're eating between the hours of 9 and 5, you'd be intermittent fasting technically. There's nothing magical about that window, right? Longer-term fasting brings deeper autophagy, but there are also downsides. Right? You get tired, you don't have as much energy. Fasting might not be best for people who've got adrenal fatigue issues or thyroid hormone output issues. So we want to consider these things. Now, I want to talk about a few cases in which intermittent fasting might want to be avoided or augmented. I guess the first one I'll talk about is when you have a disrupted circadian rhythm. If you're working nights, if you're staying up really late at night, if you're not sleeping very well and recovering from your day's work or from the stressors of everyday life. That doesn't have to be physical stressors. Most of our stressors are non-physical nowadays anyways. If you're not getting enough sleep, your circadian rhythm, which is your body's synchronization with the timing of light from its environment, namely the sun, right? The sunlight, the sun comes up in the morning, hits our eyes, and we make cortisol. Cortisol raises our blood sugar, raises blood glucose up, so we can move around. It's a good thing. We want cortisol to go up in the morning. But if we've got an inverted circadian rhythm, or just an augmented, kind of messed up circadian rhythm, if we're not sleeping very well at night, we might already have abnormally high cortisol levels. Right? You might have cortisol levels rising at night when you want them to only be higher in the morning. So if your cortisol levels are going up at night due to stress, due to blue light exposure, due to not sleeping, and you skip breakfast in the morning, your cortisol levels are going to remain relatively elevated for an extended period of time. Now, cortisol isn't inherently bad. This is about the timing. So in those situations, if you're getting really bad sleep, if you're a mom and you've been waking up 3 times in the night for the last 5 years as you have 3 or 4 kids, it's very common that in those situations, fasting in the morning is not always optimal. What happens is this: in such a situation, your cortisol is already really high. It's been up for a long time. You wake up in the morning, you just have some coffee or something. It shoots your cortisol and your adrenaline up a little bit higher. So then, you're not dropping your cortisol levels by having a meal, right? By getting the glucagon levels up, by getting sufficient protein. Your cortisol levels remain elevated. That can create sort of a catabolic situation where we will catabolize muscle tissue. We'll be catabolizing muscle tissue, but then also, when you finally do eat, oftentimes in those situations where you've got very high cortisol, very high stress, and extended fasting compounded with poor sleep, what can happen is your hunger signals just don't hit you. I mean your hunger and satiety signaling just doesn't hit at the right time, rather. So you'll have a big old meal, and at the end of that meal, you still feel hungry, and you end up eating more than you need and more than you want to be eating, just because of the hormonal situation and the timing of the meals. So in those situations where you're not getting very good sleep at night, if you've been using intermittent fasting and you're just not getting the results, if you get a big crash after that first meal and you feel terrible for a couple hours and want to take a nap right away, if you get tired and grumpy after the meal, or if you're just so hungry that you're not able to stop on that first meal, maybe dropping the intermittent fasting altogether or augmenting the schedule would be a good idea. Now, an augmented schedule of intermittent fasting could be just waking up and getting breakfast. Instead of pushing breakfast back until 11, 12, 1 o'clock, instead of waiting to eat that first meal till as late as you can, have a meal within an hour or two of waking up. You'll have to train your body to do that if you've already been using intermittent fasting. But if you're not getting the results you wanted with intermittent fasting and it feels like it could be an extra stressor, try eating earlier in the morning. And you can still do it within your 8-hour window. You can still intermittent fast if you want, and have your second meal earlier in the afternoon. Like having your last meal early in the afternoon so that you're fasting during the night hours instead of the morning hours can be a good idea. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has to do that, right? If you're doing intermittent fasting or if you're interested in intermittent fasting, that doesn't mean you have to eat right when you wake up. Some people might feel absolutely fine eating from the hours of 11 and 7. Or even waiting until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But we do know that insulin sensitivity is best in the morning. All right, so we're more prone to soaking up those nutrients rapidly. And they've actually done studies with time-restricted feeding. Let me see if I can find this study. I'll get the name right. Early time-restricted feeding improves insulin sensitivity. Alright, so I'll post this. It's just the abstract here in the main chat. Here, I'll get the whole study from Sci-Hub. Early time-restricted feeding improves insulin sensitivity, blood pressure, and oxidative stress even without weight loss in men with prediabetes. So these are all the markers. Not all the markers, but these are several markers of diabetes that are being improved even without weight loss on intermittent fasting when you eat earlier in the day as opposed to later in the day. Here, I'm going to get the entire study so we can take a look at this here. And here's a link to the whole study. So what happened was a lot of people were looking at intermittent fasting and trying to figure out what the benefits were. The summary of this is they say we conducted the first supervised controlled feeding trial to test whether intermittent fasting has benefits independent of weight loss by feeding participants enough food to maintain their weight. Our proof of concept study also constitutes the first trial of early time-restricted feeding, a form of IF that involves eating early in the day to be in alignment with circadian rhythms in metabolism. Men with prediabetes were randomized, and then they had a control group as well. The early time-restricted feeding group improved insulin sensitivity, beta cell responsiveness, blood pressure, oxidative stress, and appetite. We demonstrate for the first time in humans that early time-restricted feeding improves some aspects of cardiometabolic health, and that intermittent fasting's effects are not solely due to weight loss. So if you get a little bit deeper and you look at this study, I believe, and because I haven't read this in like a couple months, but they talk about how when you look at other studies on intermittent fasting, they seem to find that many people just didn't get any results. And where people wouldn't get the results on normal intermittent fasting of improved metabolic health markers like insulin sensitivity, blood pressure, oxidative stress, blood glucose levels, etc., they found that when they did early time-restricted feeding where they ate earlier in the day, they got better results. So when you line up the timing of your meals with your circadian rhythm properly, which for most people is going to mean eating earlier in the day rather than later in the day, right? Because if we eat late at night, we're throwing off the hormonal rhythm in a different way than when we, skip breakfast, right? So if we skip breakfast, we only eat super late at night, while we may be getting some of the benefits of autophagy. While some people may see improvements, others might not see those same benefits and in fact might feel even worse. Because when we eat late at night, it takes about 4 hours for our stomach to empty. It takes about 4 hours for gastric emptying to happen after we eat. And there's metabolic juices getting moved through the body. There's all sorts of enzymatic processes that we have to engage in that take energy. So we don't want to be digesting right before we go to bed. We want to eat at least 4 hours before we go to sleep for optimum circadian rhythm and for getting enough sleep. All right, so when people are talking about your circadian rhythm, and they're basically talking about, are you sleeping enough? Are you recovering? Is your anabolism and your catabolism in balance, right? Because when we go anabolic, it's night. Right? When we're going to rebuild our body, it's when we're sleeping. That's when we are anabolic and building muscle. When we're relaxing, when we're sleeping, we are regenerating. What's cool is we also are oxidizing lots of fatty acids when we are sleeping as well. So eating earlier in the day can allow us to burn a little bit more body fat effectively during the evening hours. So another thing we're going to talk about with meal timing is hunger levels and manipulating meal timing to induce satiety. So a lot of us might find that we get super hungry at a certain time of day, right? Sometimes it might be 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm just hungry, hypothetically, right? There might be somebody who gets really hungry at 11. Same as with intermittent fasting. If you push back the meal for too long, you can become very hungry, and your hunger signaling, the satiety signaling, will not hit you correctly, and you'll just end up overeating because it's not hitting you as hard. Right? Usually that satiety signaling, if we get a meal in at the right time, we can walk away from the table, right, without thinking, oh man, I really need more. So what's good to do, a good practice, if you're going for fat loss and you want to maintain low hunger levels, instead of looking at meal timing as, I'm not going to eat until I'm so hungry, I'm going to push back that meal until I'm so hungry, and then I'll finally eat. Instead of doing it that way, with that way of intermittent fasting, eating before you get super hungry can be a really good strategy. So simply having the meal before that hunger gets super high can make it to where you never get super duper hungry. And you'll naturally restrict food intake. So eat before you're hungry. Don't wait till you're starving to eat. And if you do wait till you're starving to eat, take it slow. Let it settle after your first serving and make sure you're not overdoing it and making yourself nauseous or giving yourself so much food you can't digest. So the biggest goal of meal timing, if you're going for fat loss, is reducing hunger. Right? Optimizing sleep is also part of reducing hunger. One night of missed sleep, one night of poor sleep, can create an imbalance in the circadian rhythm that will make it to where we have high blood glucose the next day. In fact, a normal person can be made pre-diabetic and have pre-diabetic blood glucose numbers just from one night of poor sleep. So next week, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about circadian rhythm, optimizing sleep, optimizing our environment, our home and work environment, so that we can maximize that and optimize our sleep habits. So with intermittent fasting, if you're interested in intermittent fasting, I would suggest waiting a few weeks until you get adapted to a ketogenic diet until you get started on it. All right, so even if you've already been doing intermittent fasting, it might be a good idea to get breakfast in. And a nice compromise where you're not technically intermittent fasting, but you're dang close to it, and you're still fasting a long period of time during the day, is to do a meal in the morning and a meal in the evening. All right, so say you eat at like 7 o'clock in the morning and then 6 o'clock in the evening. That's a great meal spread. It's not intermittent fasting technically, but you got a long fasting period in between those two meals. And you're not going to be eating so late to where it keeps you up at night and makes you get poor sleep. And you're dropping your cortisol levels in the morning. And so again, if you got night shift, hypothyroid, hormone issues, and a lot of women, a lot of mothers have issues with intermittent fasting and pushing back breakfast too far. A lot of men do really well with it and don't notice any issues. I'm not saying all women have issues with it, but some do. And there might be a few in here that want to avoid intermittent fasting. And if you are looking at intermittent fasting, doing an early time-restricted feeding schedule instead of a later one would be a great idea too. So breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And a lot of people have been harping on about for a long time. There is some truth to that. Now, when you have that breakfast, right, breaking that fast, when you break that fast and have breakfast, and the optimal time to do that might be different for different folks. But it is pretty important what you get in there. So you want to get a significant portion of protein in with your first meal. With breakfast, you want to be making sure to get at least like 30 grams of protein. All right, get the protein in. Doesn't mean we want to fetishize protein and overeat on protein, but we want to get sufficient protein with that meal so that the glucagon levels can go up so we can burn body fat and to where we're just not hungry. Because if you fill up on the steaks, you're not going to care about the cakes. All right, so get the protein in. Try to get breakfast in within an hour of waking up. Hey, lunch could be optional for some of us. Try to get dinner in 4 hours before bed. If you're going for an intermittent fasting schedule and you haven't seen the results you want, or you feel like it might be a little bit stressful waiting to eat for that first meal, try doing an early time-restricted feeding schedule as well. Another thing you might want to look into is your salt intake throughout the day. Salt is crucial. We need sodium. Sometimes we think we're hungry, but we're just thirsty. Sometimes we think we're hungry or we're thirsty, and we're just looking for salt. And sodium helps us to hold on to that water that we need in our body. Helps us to create energy and create an electrical current. We need sodium in the blood. You got to get that salt in. So sometimes you think you're really hungry and you'd normally be getting in a snack or something. Having a little bit of salt can push back that hunger really well and can give you energy. So leverage your salt intake. Use salt as a performance enhancer. A quarter teaspoon or a half teaspoon of salt can go a long way in helping you to create energy, helping you to volumize your blood. All right, so if you're going to go in for a workout, having salt before that workout can be very good. And, yeah, let's see. Speaking of workouts, like pre or post-workout nutrition, kind of a moot point. A lot of people think, oh, I've got to get in some carbohydrate before my workout, or I've got to get in a meal right before my workout. That's not necessarily true. Right? Most of us are, doing short workouts, maybe an hour max. There's no need to take in carbohydrates before the workout. There's no need to take in protein right after the workout. In fact, you get just as much muscle gain as long as you get that protein in within 24 hours of that workout. So if you end up doing a workout in the evening, you're just not hungry, and you're not going to have your next meal till breakfast, don't worry about it. You're fine. Waiting for 12 hours till you get your protein in is not going to kill your gains or not going to destroy your recovery. And we don't need to refill glycogen. A lot of people get concerned, oh, do I need to refill my glycogen before a workout? The body will refill glycogen levels with or without any food. So we don't need carbs to refill glycogen levels. And that's it, guys. That's what I got today about meal timing. And don't overthink it. Don't turn it into this crazy cat and mouse game of trying to get the perfect, the most optimal, always meal timing. Just do what you can. Try not to eat late at night. If you've been having troubles with intermittent fasting, perhaps consider switching to an early feeding schedule and get breakfast in. Eat before you're hungry. Don't let yourself get starving hungry before you eat. And all those tips should help to reduce hunger levels, to improve autophagy, and get the benefits of ketosis, and perhaps even intermittent fasting, while getting the results you want, while not stressing yourself out more. Because remember, the meal timing and the diet are not there to create more stress. You want to use them to relieve stress, right? To give you energy when you need it. All right, so I'm going to open up the floor now. Let's see. Is it Ann or Amber? Ann. What's up, Ann? You there? Feel free to unmute. Barbara? Hey, what's up, Ann? There you are.
Yeah, I'm just listening to some of the concerns that you have about. So, are you saying basically for intermittent fasting when you're searching? Are you still kind of approving of like an 8-hour window, or is it just simply to eat in the morning and then maybe 10, 12 hours later at night?
Yeah, well, it's going to be context dependent, right? So some people might do great on like, hey, a 4-hour window or something. Others might want to consider eating a little earlier in the morning. So I've got your, I just pulled up your file here, your questionnaire. What does your schedule look like right now?
It's pretty stable. So I can eat when I need to eat or whatever, and I play with that quite a bit. But I haven't really hit on the magic thing that works for me yet.
What are some of the things you tried? Just brief overview, and then let me know what you're doing now and what you want to improve.
Okay, so I've done 24-hour. I haven't really done more than probably 30-hour intermittent fasting, and that works for a little bit. But then usually there'll be one day where I'm just ravenous, and I kind of get off that way of going. And then when I do the 16-8, that does work on some level. It controls. I'm able to eat within that window, but I don't have the results that I would like to see, which is a little bit more fat burn or a little bit more weight loss.
And what time were you eating in that window?
It's, to be honest with you, it's mainly protein. I mean, I obviously fats and proteins. I'm not really big on carbs, but I don't think I have the balance of proteins and fats right, or I didn't prior to taking this course.
Yeah.
And I'm working on getting in more of alignment with a 1-to-1 ratio.
Yeah. Usually 1 gram to 1 on protein and fat is if you're getting sufficient protein and not way too much protein. Usually 1 gram to 1 is pretty decent fat loss. Now for you, how many grams of protein are you going for right now?
I'm probably going for like around 160, 150.
Cool. So now if you're going for 160, 150, you're probably going to find that your hunger is going to drop significantly. Right, so you'll have you hit that yet for a few days?
Yeah, I'm probably on like day 3 of that, and I'm able to control, based on what you just stated, I'm able to control the window more. I can keep the window tighter, and I'm still kind of focusing on a 16 and 8.
Yeah, Okay, so there's probably no reason to adjust that too much. And if you've done meal timing adjustments in the past, you understand that it takes a few days to get adjusted to it, right? Like the first time you try to have a meal at a different time, it just feels weird. You're not hungry, but then your body gets trained to be hungry at those times. So we want to consider that when we're making meal timing adjustments as well. It's like, well, what time do I want to get hungry? That's when I want to start eating, right? So I think in your situation, 150, 160 gram protein, definitely sufficient. Try, if your hunger drops, you could probably be as low as like 120 grams of protein. Wouldn't go too much below that at the time, but I'd say like 120 to 150 protein, like 90 to 120 fat should be pretty good for you. And if you could try doing like 2 meals in that window, I think that might be better. One meal early in the window and then your last meal at the end. That might feel good. How many meals are you doing right now?
I basically shoot for 1 to 2.
Okay.
And then one thing is that because like I started early this morning, like I think I ate at like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And then I'll go to probably 4 in the afternoon, 5 in the afternoon, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But is having something like broth at night where it's just like chicken broth or beef broth, is that something that'll kick you out of intermittent fasting?
Yeah, I mean, like technically you're putting some amino acids in there and it will change your blood sugar, your insulin levels slightly. So, you might want to have the broth inside of the window. I'd keep the broth inside the window if you could. And you just do water outside the window. It doesn't mean that. I mean, it's not like intermittent fasting is this magical thing that if you have the broth outside the window, you're breaking the magic, right? It's like the magic circle is broken. It's not going to work now. It's not. It doesn't. It might not make a difference at all, right? Just having a little bit of broth outside that window, but it'd be interesting to look at it. Try to keep it within that window. Just drink water in the hours outside of it, and I think you should be good. I mean, you're working out 3 times a week, so you're weight training. You're looking for fat loss. Are you seeing? Sometimes if you're lifting weights and you're working on strength training, sometimes we'll be gaining muscle and the fats. We'll be gaining muscle and losing fat, but the scale stays the same. So just watch. If your pants are fitting.
That's incredible. That's incredibly annoying.
All right, so I mean, you might be gaining strength pretty fast. Are you building strength noticeably in the gym?
Yeah, and actually building strength and actually seeing more definition. So I mean,
nice.
Something's going on, but I'm not. I'm so tied to numbers. That's the problem here.
Yeah, that's part of it, right? And also, we're so subjective, right? If it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to look at the scale. I'll just see what I look like in the mirror. And then it's like, well, okay, well, the lighting's a little bit different. You might hallucinate that you gained 20 pounds, right? It's just, we're so subjective with the mirror, and it's based on emotion, a lot of it. But, if your pants fit looser, if your pants are looser, but the scale doesn't move, that's a good indicator.
Yeah. I think mainly I'm staying kind of the same, but I'm just seeing a little bit more definition, a little bit more strength.
So that's good. That means you're building strength, you're building muscle, and you're losing fat, but the scale's not moving. So in your case, don't worry so much what the scale says. If you're noticeably stronger, if you see more muscle definition, if you see that there's less fat but the scale doesn't move, take the victory. Don't beat yourself up over it.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Nice talking. Bye-bye. All right. We got Barbara here.
Hey, Tristan.
Hey, Barbara. How's it going today?
This is going good. That Ann's talk was really interesting, informative. I wanted to talk about autophagy, but actually my husband wants me to talk about sleep.
You sound like you need some sleep.
You know me.
Yeah.
I don't sleep.
Yeah.
So I slept the other night. For the first time, I just collapsed at about 10:30, and I didn't wake up until 10:30 in the morning. So I had
so every once in a while,
straight.
So you don't sleep, and then every once in a while you sleep a lot. Oversleep.
Yeah, just collapse.
Yeah. Well, all right. So next week we're getting into the circadian rhythm and sleep stuff. We're gonna get deeper into a lot of this stuff. In your case, have you been getting outside?
Not as much as I'd like, but that's due to weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. This is not Ecuador
Yeah.
at all.
No, but where are you? In Washington or you in Northern California?
I'm in Tahoe in the mountains.
Yeah, you're
where
in
it's
Tahoe.
snowing.
Yeah, you guys have snow right now. Yeah, but still, I mean, getting outside, like, or just opening up a window. We're opening up a
Yeah,
window,
well,
sitting out on the porch in a
do.
jacket, right? It's like we just getting natural light on our eyes during the day and avoiding that artificial light at night. That's number one. That's
Yeah.
step one to really getting better sleep. Maximize natural light during the day, minimize artificial light at night.
What do you think of those? My niece bought me a really expensive. It's called Alaskan Lights, and it's got 10,000 lumens, and it's supposed to be just like the sun. And in the morning, when it's dark, you turn it on, and you either use it to read by, or you just look like you don't look straight at it, obviously, but you look around it, and you just keep it on you, and keep it on your face and stuff for 20 minutes in the morning. It's supposed to help you. I don't know
Yeah, I mean,
if you've ever heard about that.
I've not really recommended a lot of those things. The issue that can happen with some of these things is like just EMF stuff can kind of maybe offset the health benefits. But I mean, why?
What's EMF?
Just electromagnetic fields. I mean, just
Oh, okay.
our hormones, our cells react to electromagnetic frequencies around us, and fluctuations in magnetic fields will. I mean, our body is constantly communicating with itself using electrical signals and magnetic fields. So it's just sometimes these devices can mess with that. But yeah, I mean, it's probably fine. I mean, why not can't you get out in the morning sunshine for like a few minutes?
Well, the sun doesn't come up until
9. What time's it come
what
up?
time? Like,
8 o'clock.
the time
9?
hits our house at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, so you guys are so you gotta come over the mountain there. Yeah, I mean, in the morning, that could be a good idea. I'm a really big fan of red light therapy. Red light therapy, I know, like as far as technologically kind of I don't know what you want to call it, hacking the sleep thing. Red light therapy is great. That's my favorite. That's like my go-to thing, right? It's very relaxing, so it's great at night, in the afternoon, in the evening. You guys got a fireplace? You're in California.
Yes.
You're allowed to have a fireplace in Tahoe? That's crazy.
No.
You're not?
We have a gas fireplace.
Okay. They're gonna say we have an illegal.
Yeah.
We have an illegal fireplace. Cool. Yeah, but I mean, sitting by the fire at night. That's just something simple like that. Turn off the TV. Sit by the fire. Read. Lay in front of that fire. I guarantee your sleep will improve by at least 15-20%. As far subjectively, if we should get 15 to 20% better sleep just from that. But I think maybe that's a good one to work on, right? So let's work on the light exposure.
Yeah.
Get on that. Use the bright light device to read in the morning. That's fine. Maybe wake yourself up a little bit. Move throughout the day. Try not to try to be as active as you can and continue building strength. When you can get outside, if the sun peeks out from the clouds, if it's not snowing on you or all overcast, get outside for a few minutes. Throw the jacket on. Just get your face in the sun, right? Even though it's winter, even though it's at the angle, you're not getting as much UVB. It's more than just UVB, right? Vasodilates the skin. You're getting the red and near infrared frequency. But also at night, don't underestimate the power of fire and just like that natural light from the fire. Lay by that fire. Warm your body up next to it. Stare into it. Let it relax your eyes. You'll find that it's very soothing, very relaxing, and it's probably underappreciated in most homes. So the fireplace is a sleep hacking device. You can biohack your sleep by using just what everybody's always done for hundreds of years, for thousands of years, is sitting by the fire. Let's try that this week, and then we'll talk about some more things next week, which when we're talking about circadian rhythm and sleep.
As far as meal timing goes, I did lower, make about an hour earlier, but we've been doing that for a couple weeks now, and it hasn't really bothered me at all. I mean, I
Has it
I've
helped?
adjusted to it just fine. And then we usually stop eating. The latest is 5 o'clock. So
And it
it's just
hasn't.
naturally. It's not forced or anything. It's just what we do. Because my husband has an early schedule.
Yeah.
So he's up really early. And so he always wants, like in the summertime, we'll be eating dinner at about 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So our regular dinner in the winter is around 4:30. So other than that, I mean, that's not we've been doing that forever. So it's doesn't feel, it doesn't bother us. But I've heard so much about autophagy and meal timing, but
well, look, you've been into such deep autophagy that you've autophagized a lot of your muscle tissue, right?
Have I?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Right? I mean, you've had major atrophy. You were bedridden for how long?
I was sedated for 2 weeks. So I was bedridden for 6.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you think about that, it's like you had plenty of autophagy those 6 weeks. We're working on,
But isn't it a good thing when you're, like, let's say, a lot of people who are really overweight, they start really losing weight on keto. I'm not one of those people, but they do, and they get skin that sags, and they say, well, I got to get autophagy to tighten up my skin. Is that a real thing, or have I just been led down a primrose path?
No, I mean, it's theoretical, right? It's theoretical. People are thinking if I get into deep autophagy, I'm going to eat this skin. I'm not going to have to get the skin surgery. There might be partial truth to it. There might be some people who get really good results that way. But, I mean, in your situation, what I think we should focus on is strengthening the body, right? Strengthen the body when you can, moving around throughout the day, getting that movement going, getting outside when you can. 15-minute, 20-minute of, movement after or before a meal. Yeah, that's what I want to focus on with you. The autophagy thing, like you get into autophagy every day. Exercise creates autophagy, right? So it's not just fasting that gets us into autophagy. Moving the body and exercising also will get us into autophagy.
Gotcha. That's good to know.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like whenever you're moving, whenever you're exerting energy, whenever you're strengthening your body. What's happening is you're damaging muscle tissues, you're damaging tissues, your body goes, removes those, and replaces them with stronger tissues and rebuilds them. That's autophagy. And it's a constant process. It's not like a either-or thing where it's like, oh, I'm in autophagy or I'm not in autophagy. We can get into very deep autophagy with fasting, totally right. But in your case, we don't want to do too much of that because you've experienced that in the past and you kind of hit a wall with that. Right, so what we're trying to do is get enough protein, get enough energy to where you have more energy to move, get your body moving, strengthening the body. Then you're going to burn that body fat because we're not going to burn body fat and tap into it if we're sedentary. Right, so it's like we've got to strengthen and move. We have to relax and rest sometimes. So, hey, half the day we're sedentary. That's when we're sleeping. Right? We're sedentary in the night, kind of. We still move around a little bit. But, yeah, that's what we're going to work on. And, no, we can talk about a little bit more deep strategies for getting better sleep on next Sunday when we talk about the circadian rhythm and sleep.
Thanks, Tristan.
Yeah, Barbara. Have a good one. Nice hearing your voice.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Hey, Christine. Christine's here. No, sometimes people can't unmute. Sometimes people are out and about. Christine or Daniel. Oh, there's Christine. What's up?
Oh, not much.
How you doing?
I think I'm still struggling.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if it's from just not being able to work out from the car accident, or if it's... I've not really tried too much intermittent fasting. I've been afraid to because...
In your situation, you probably don't want to mess with it. Like in your type of situation, it's not going to be the best way to go, right? When you have thyroid, adrenal issues, stuff like that, arthritic symptoms, might not be the best way. So I think for you, it's probably going to be better to get a meal in the morning.
Yeah, I do better with that. So I didn't know. Now my schedule at work changes quite a bit. There's days I work early and then days I work late.
Yeah.
And and I tend to, on the days that I work late, I tend to want to eat late.
Yep.
Because
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
without eating. So,
Totally makes sense.
but like I go in at like 2 in the afternoon, sometimes 3. My husband usually gets home a little later too, so we tend to eat later. So I didn't know if that was,
That could be an issue. I mean, you're looking for some weight loss, right? Looking for a little bit of fat loss, and basically, you've got a lot of stress lately, right? And a major injury too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think how's the rehab from the injury going?
A lot better. I'm starting to really make improvement. So
Cool. Are you swimming, or what's the rehab entailing?
no, I was going to the chiropractor every day, getting massages, and they'd put me on that muscle stimulator 10 unit thing and stretching.
Okay. Okay. So as your body's strengthening, as you're rebuilding, of course, you want to make sure you're getting enough protein. You mentioned that you might have had issues with oxalates in the past. I think we talked about this last time because, I mean, you've had thyroid issues. You thought maybe goitrogens were an issue. I think in your situation, going very low oxalate would be a really good idea. Or, I mean, the easiest way to do that is kind of going towards more of a carnivore-style diet, eating mostly meat and animal foods. What's the meals look like the last week? Have you been on point, or is it kind of hard to maintain?
Well, I think I've been doing okay. I mean, I sent you kind of a diet for 3 days of what I normally do.
Well, you mentioned, you sometimes get issues when you have a lot of stress. Then you sometimes get a little bit of, overeating will happen. You'll eat stuff that you don't normally want to eat.
Yeah, no, I haven't had too much problem with that lately. There's times that we'll go get a pizza, and I take the crust off the pizza. I'm probably getting too much cheese that way, but exactly. I don't do that very often.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if that's not an everyday thing. I mean, once a week, having just the cheese off of a pizza might not be so bad, but every day, not a good idea. And we want to focus on. Yeah, I want to focus on meats, fish, eggs. I think in your situation, that's what we want to be focusing on. The fatty cuts of meat.
I think what might be hurting me too is now I've been weighing out my cheese. Like I get like the raw dairy.
Yeah, that's good.
But I measured it out to like a 1 ounce thing, but I don't know if it's that or the cream that I put in my coffee. Now I'll get a coffee like midday, and that's kind of what I do for lunch a lot. I don't know if I get organic half and half, but I don't know if that's messing me up. Or maybe is it the stevia that I'm putting in the coffee?
I'll pull out the half and half, right? Like if you can drink the coffee black, drink it black. Stevia is probably not much of an issue. Well, stevia can be an issue for some people, but probably not. What I would go for is just pull out the half and half. That's the first step I'd do.
Yeah, I don't like it that way.
Yeah.
That'd probably just be better just not having it.
Really? You can do without it? If you could do without it, that'd be fine. But yeah, the half and half is just it's just added fat that you don't really need.
Okay. I just didn't know if that's what was kind of stalling me or not. Or if it's the caffeine. I don't know.
I mean, well, first of all, we got to look at stress, right?
Right.
If stress and sleep are not, if you're staying up, not sleeping due to stress, that could be a major issue. So, I think
my sleep has been better since I've been feeling better from the accident.
Yeah, good. And you're just a few weeks out of this accident too, right?
No, 3 months.
3 months now, okay. Yeah, so I think in your situation, we want to focus on let's keep shooting for the nutrient dense, whole, unrefined animal foods, right? And try to get at least 2 meals in a day. Try to get a meal in within an hour of waking up. If you want to have your last meal late at night, later in the afternoon, that's fine. Just do 2 meals if you want. You can keep it within a 8-hour window if you want, but I don't think that's necessary. Probably in your situation might even be detrimental. So I think I'd maybe not worry about intermittent fasting. And Yeah, I mean, sometimes it takes time, right? We can't expect to, the changes don't always happen as quick as we
Well,
expect them.
sometimes just I take like a salmon stick into work with me, and that'll get me through, like in the middle of my day.
Mm-hmm.
One of the, like a salmon jerky thing.
Yeah.
It's not that I eat a lot, but I just take in a little bit of protein in the middle of the day to get me through.
That's fine.
My
I mean,
work,
sometimes sometimes a little bit of salt can take care of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sometimes just like a quarter or a half a teaspoon of salt can take care of that.
Now, as far as my, because I am so petite, vertically challenged, what should my macros be for my height? I've got down here, like how many calories a day should I get?
Jessica already sent that to you, right? In private message. Did you see you guys were talking?
I sent her.
Well, I mean, she went into like how many grams of protein for carnivore, but I don't think I ever got anything like for what my day should be for like fat and protein.
Yeah, we should probably getting at least 75 to 90 grams of protein a day, and at least equal grams of fat. But probably you want to start out with a few. Yes, look at your private message. Jessica already sent you. She sent you a breakdown. It's like the last private message that Jessica sent you yesterday.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood it.
Yeah, so 75 to 90 grams of protein, like 90 to 100 grams of fat. If you want to have vegetables, it's fine, but I think you probably want to keep them low oxalate and probably keep more on the carnivore side.
Yeah.
But that should be enough.
So
that's like about a pound of meat a day.
1 pound of meat. Okay, and so if I just total those up, that'll give me what the calories are.
Oh yeah, I mean there's 9 calories per gram of fat, 4 calories per gram of protein.
Okay.
No, we're not worried about counting calories. We want to get sufficient protein, and then we'll adjust the fat according to your needs. Right, so it's like if you try to hit the protein. What's that?
I was worried of not getting enough calories, or getting too many. If I get too many, then I'm not working out.
But how do you know that?
Right now.
How do you know you're getting too many calories by looking at the number?
Know.
Because you don't know by just looking at the number, right? We only know through. That's the thing. So we only know through application, but you haven't lost the weight, but it's only been a few days on these macros, right?
No, I've been doing that a while. It's just, that's why I'm worried
not the macros we just sent you. How long have you been doing the?
Well, no, the ones that I sent you in the 3-day thing that I sent you.
Yeah.
That's what I normally do. I've been doing that for a while.
I know, but let's make the changes that we talked about and see where the body goes. Right, because before you were eating like 40 grams of protein. You were under eating on the protein before. It was just 86 sometimes. Sometimes the protein was right. Sometimes the protein was good. Let's see. I'm just looking at the.
Dairy. I just didn't know if the dairy was like.
It can. No, that's one of the first things. That's why I'm saying removing the half and half. That's like probably the first thing I would do. Dairy, nuts.
Yeah, 2 years ago, that's how I lost it 2 years ago. But I just wasn't sure. I'd kind of like to be able to think I could have some, but
yeah,
maybe not.
Yeah, well, just see what happens when you pull it out. See if it helps. Pull it out for a few weeks.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It was nice talking.
Nice talking to you.
Bye, Christine. Have a good week. We'll see you on Wednesday. What time on Wednesday? 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday. We'll be back in here for Q&A for everybody.
Yep, I can do that one.
Cool. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
Okay, so we got Danielle, Johnny, me, Russell. If anyone else wants to jump in, if you guys got any questions, feel free to unmute. We'll do Johnny first, since he was listed first. Alphabetical. What's up, Johnny? Oh, can't hear you. All right, so let's see. Johnny? All right, Johnny's not here. Lilia? Or me? I almost say my every time. What's up, me?
Hi. Yeah, I'm good.
How's it going? Great. Nice to see you here today.
Yeah, thank you. I just realized that my English is way worse than I thought. Listen to the recording from last night.
Your English is fine. Your English is probably better than you think. It's probably better than you think because we can understand you. Sometimes the audio is just. I think the audio just the speakers. It's got to go through the through your microphone and all that stuff. So sometimes that's more of an issue. Well, how's your week been?
Yeah, it's been good.
Nice.
Really good.
Nice. You make the changes we talked about.
Huh?
Did you implement the changes we talked about?
With a high meat? No, not yet. I'm really looking into it, and I think I might start buying some medicine jars for that first.
Nice. What time is it over there right now?
Now it's at 8 p.m.
Okay. So you're getting ready for bed?
No, not really. Soon enough.
Yeah.
Soon enough.
Nice.
Okay, so I have a question about the female hormones. How come, especially estrogen, is giving intense cravings?
Yeah, so I mean, everybody gets cravings, men and women. So it's not like you're just cursed with estrogen, and that's why you have cravings. Like everybody gets cravings, especially if we've had a lifelong, attachment to certain foods and junk foods. I mean, there's certain times in the month around your period where you might experience more cravings. Sometimes.
Yeah, I can pinpoint it to a few days during every cycle.
Have you ever tried increasing magnesium around that time and increasing iron a little bit around that time?
You think that to change it or? Maybe.
Well, sometimes just taking some like magnesium citrate, and then making sure to get in like a steak or something, just a high iron food, some good red meat around that time can be useful. The magnesium can really help with the stress. Right, so something you get water weight fluctuations when you're coming around that time of the month too. So sometimes just balancing out, making sure you're getting enough salt and enough magnesium can be pretty helpful. Any other tips, Jessica?
Yeah, more protein if she's getting hungry.
Jessica's saying when you do get hungry, right, if the cravings do come, well, tell it to shut up by just giving it some more protein, right? It's like, so instead of saying, right, so it's like if you again, filling up on the steaks, you're not going to give a dang about the cakes. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking about the chocolate cake, you're like, no, I'm already outside of I've eaten all the food I'm going to eat for today. I can't eat that. And then you're just thinking about it, and then somebody offers you a cookie, and you're like, all right, fine. Right? Wouldn't it be better? So instead instead of thinking about it, and then there's a cookie in front of you, and you're like, screw it, I'm just gonna eat it. Instead of that, just like eat a double portion of your normal keto foods for one meal, right? Like increase your portion size a little bit or significantly, and that'll drop your hunger down, and you might even be less hungry the next day too. Right? So it's better to have a little bit more protein than to go completely off plan and off the rails. So just, a few more ounces of protein, little piece of fish, right? It's like someone was talking about some dried salmon, anything like that could be useful. What was it?
It goes away with time, too.
Jessica says it goes away with time. Well, that's obviously, period doesn't last all month.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about, the cravings go away.
Cravings go away with time.
And then like pain and discomfort, everything, it becomes really normal.
Yeah, because you die of hunger.
Stop.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah, no, you get what I'm saying, though, right? It's like you tell the cravings to you give it something else, right? Sometimes you think you want something, but really your body's just a little bit hungry, and you're making up stories, right? The mind is such a the mind is so powerful, and it can make us think we want these foods when really it's the last thing we want. So a little more steak, a little more fish, or a couple hard-boiled eggs added to a meal when you're really hungry, you're having cravings. That's way better than being grumpy and having 3 days of being miserable around that time. So that should help.
It's probably a lot of old routines that I still have left. And sometimes I just go on autopilot and, well, suddenly I consumed carbs.
That's the thing,
and
you
I
feel...
know already how that happened.
Right. No, and that is how it works. Like, you get a certain feeling, and then whenever that feeling hits you, you do something to medicate, right? And that's like, it might be carbs. It might be, it's like when you smoke, when you quit smoking or something like that. You're trying to stop smoking cigarettes. When it's like every time certain stimulus happens, you're going to get a craving. And once you identify those stimulus and you can get around it, you can consciously rework the habit. So you just got to basically pay attention to when those cravings come, and then make the adjustments as necessary to intelligently thwart them.
All right.
So first step is observing it, but yeah, just a little more protein is the easiest way to go about it a lot of the time. Get the magnesium in, you should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, me. Have a good one.
Bye.
Yeah. Russell, who'd you try to DM? Russell's just like shadow banned off of... He's shadow banned from the servers. Mike's not working. He's trying to DM us. He tried to send it to you, me and you. Did you get a DM from Russell?
I haven't got anything.
Let me DM you, Russell. Look, you right-click, message. I'm just going to say, hey! Your message could not be delivered because you don't share a server with the recipient, or you disabled direct messages on your shared server. Recipient is only accepting direct messages from friends. Ah, okay. Go to your settings, Russell.
You could also just add him as a friend if that's easier.
Okay, I'll just add you as a friend. There you go.
Add friend.
Alright, so Russell, I think it's just because your settings had it to where you could only receive direct messages from friends.
But you sent a friend request, and you should see that.
So if you go over to your user settings, and then you go down to, let's see, where would that be? Privacy and safety. Who can add you as a friend? Stuff like that. Let's see, where's the... No, he needs to give access to his microphone, I think.
It's on the phone.
If you go into your
phone settings.
If you go into your user settings or into your phone on the phone settings, you might have to give the app access to your microphone. So you might have to give it permission in your phone to use it. Same thing with the on your PC. Hey, Johnny. Johnny, can you hear me? Johnny. Johnny's having some mic issues too. Yeah, I can't hear you. I can see that you're unmuting, but I'm just not hearing you. Sorry, Johnny. Okay. Let's see if we can get Johnny's mic to work. Find the troubleshooting article for getting mics to work, and we can just post it in the main chat in case anyone else is having problems. Alright, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up, everybody. I think we're going to wrap this one up, guys. Unless Johnny's mic comes back on. Yeah, Johnny, your mic's not working, man. Okay, here we go. Yeah. All right, Johnny. Johnny sent a question in his PM. So he's trying to get lean mass. He wants to add like 6 pounds of muscle this year while staying lean and trying not to get fatter or maybe even get leaner. So he's 6'3". Usually eats carbs before or after he lifts. Lifts twice a week. Non-lifting days, fewer carbs. He's close to full keto. He went on a 5-day cruise. Put on 2 to 3 pounds. Some water weight. Let's see. Switch to whole milk, from whole milk to heavy cream. All right, so Johnny's looking to gain some lean muscle mass. He wants to drop some body fat, but doesn't want to drop too much, because when you do drop too much body fat, it tends to mess up muscle mass. You lose muscle too. So Johnny, in your situation, look, first of all, as we age, our testosterone levels are decreasing, right? Like we don't make as much testosterone, because it becomes harder to gain muscle mass. It becomes harder to put on muscle mass, and the leaner we get, if we get super lean, testosterone drops also. So in your situation, the best thing to focus on is increasing strength and improving performance in the gym, right? So you want to increase your strength, you want to gain lean muscle mass, so you want to focus on lifting, right? So you're eating carbs only around the gym. I think right now, because you want to drop a little bit more body fat, right? You gained a little bit of body fat that you didn't want to gain. I think right now it's better to pull the carbs out, right? There's no need to have those carbs right before your workout. Let's go more towards like a full keto, right? Let's go more towards like a full keto. In your situation, you probably want to get in at least like 150 grams of protein a day. Right, because you're trying to gain some mass. You want to get sufficient protein. You already lost that. Okay, so you already lost it. So let's focus on getting enough protein, man. At least 150 grams of protein. I'd say about 150 grams of fat minimum. All right, so probably around 150 protein and 200 grams of fat. If you're lifting 1 to 3 times a week, you probably don't need to. If you're lifting 2 times a week, you probably don't need to increase your carbohydrate intake. All right, you're doing 2 cardio sessions a week, which is good. Right, it sounds like you're on a solid program. It sounds like you're making progress in the gym, lifting twice, cardio twice. Let's get those meals in twice a day. Smash those weights in the gym. 3 or 3.5. Is that meals? 3 or 3.5 meals? Is that what you're saying? Meals, okay. 3 is fine. We don't have to cut the meal frequency down. 3 meals is fine. 3 meals, at least 50 grams of protein per meal, 50 to 70 grams of fat per meal. Go for a walk after each meal. Right? It doesn't have to. It doesn't mean you're eating more protein than that. That's fine. How much protein are you eating? What are you eating? Like 180? Hey, I guessed it. Nice. 180 is fine. 180 protein, 180 fat. That should be good for you. All right, because you're scared to cut the carbs. I bet you are. It's scary. If you haven't done it before, it's scary, Johnny.
No, he was on keto. He lost a bunch of
You did keto before to lose that weight. How long have you been on the carbs? You haven't been on full keto before. £40 in 7 months. Incredible. You're going to be fine without the carbs. The first week, you might not feel optimal. Get enough salt in. Get the sodium up. All right, try to get at least a half teaspoon of salt on each meal. All right, at least a half teaspoon of salt on each one of those meals. How many grams of carbs did he say he was eating again? He's getting like 90 to 120 grams of carbs. Okay. Look, here's what we do. Let's cut the carbs. 60 to 80 grams of carb. Same carb sources, 60 to 80 grams of carbs a day. 180 protein, about 180 fat. 180 protein, 180 fat, about 60 grams of carbs a day. So we don't need to take away all the carbs. I don't need to be a masochist. Let's see what that does. All right, now that should be a good level. That might be overdoing it calorically. If you start to put on fat, then we'll adjust. I don't think you'll start to put on too much fat. Also understand that with muscle gain, with significant muscle gain, we don't... Yeah, you're still losing. Maybe your body wants to be lean and muscular. With significant muscle gain, usually there's some fat gain, just not a lot. But let's see what that does. 60 carb, 180 protein, 180 fat. I'm going to send that to you in private message just so I have it from my resources. All right. Holding steady for a month. Okay. That's good. You're holding steady for a month. Are you making progress with strength? Right? You want to focus on building strength. So you're trying to make gains in the gym. If you're getting stronger, you're going in the right direction. Slow but steady. That's how it always is, man. You know what? Muscle never builds as fast as fat builds, right? And we never gain muscle as quick as we lose fat. Gaining muscle is really hard. 4 chin-ups, there you go. Let's get you to 5 in a few weeks, right? That's so cool. Congratulations, man. There you go. He couldn't do any chin-ups a week ago. Now he's doing 4. So when you're doing chin-ups and stuff or movements where you focus on the negatives on those, real slow negatives on those chin-ups, right? The slower you go down, the more time under tension. There you go. You're already doing negatives. Look at that. Johnny, you should be teaching me. You're doing everything right, man. You're doing really well. Super impressive. And if you guys saw, I got his questionnaire here. He sent a body composition picture. He's jacked. Super strong. Dude, I'm gonna, like, you could take Johnny's picture that he sent me and Photoshop some 20-year-old kid on it. And people would believe it. Like, you could Photoshop it like a 20-year-old kid, his face on Johnny's body. And everyone would believe it. The only thing that gives you away, Johnny, it's the white beard. If you bleached, or if you dyed your beard, you could get a job at Google. you could get a job at what's the place that they only want young people? I don't know. Google works. But really good job, man. I'm stoked for you. That's really cool. 4 chin-ups a week ago, none. That's really good. You got me excited. You're making me feel lazy. All right, keep it up, Johnny. Let me know how it goes. The first few days it might feel a little bit weird. You said you were still slowly losing at that level. Let's see what happens in the next couple weeks. Let's just see what happens. Let's cruise at this, and we don't want to make too drastic of a change. We'll see how you feel. Thanks, Johnny. All right, so everybody who's still here, looks like we already answered most people's questions. Everyone took off already. But it was nice hanging out, guys. We're going to put this one up for you to review later on if you just jumped in at the end here, so you can go back and listen. It was nice hanging out. We'll see you guys on Wednesday. Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is the next session. Bye, guys.